If they think I'm a burden, it's time I remind them what a burden can carry. That thought struck me the moment the coffee burned through my shirt and stung my chest. The smell was bitter, scorched, almost metallic. My daughter Violet stood across the table, her hand still trembling from the cup she just hurled. "Give Tyler the card, Dad," she said, her voice sharp, practiced. "Don't embarrass yourself in front of him." Tyler, my grandson, looked at the floor, 16 years old, sneakers tapping under the table, cheeks flushed with a guilt he couldn't name yet. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. I set the mug down slowly, unfastened my glasses, and wiped the drip running down my arm. My chest still burned, but the heat inside me wasn't from the coffee. It was from something older, something I hadn't felt in years. The weight of being disrespected in my own home. "A burden?" I asked, my voice steady. Violet crossed her arms. "You said it, not me. You've lived here long enough. You want to stay? Hand over the card. Otherwise," she snapped her fingers, "you'll have to figure things out elsewhere." From the living room came her husband's laugh, short and smug, like a match strike. The sound told me everything. They had rehearsed this scene, scripted it behind closed doors. I pushed back from the table, the legs of my chair screeching across the floor. The old cuckoo clock on the wall clicked and wheezed, the bird popping out with hollow song, mocking the silence that followed. I glanced at it and thought how often I'd measure my life by that bird, by its punctual chirps. But now, time had another meaning. "I'll tell you this once," I said, sliding my glasses back on. "The card stays with me, and so does the house." Her face tightened, lips pressed in, eyes darting toward Tyler as if he were a witness she needed to silence. "You'll regret that." The boy shifted uncomfortably, whispering, "Mom, maybe just—" "Quiet," she cut him off. "The humiliation wasn't mine. It was hers. I could see it. How much she hated that I wasn't bending, that I wasn't signing away the last pieces of myself for her convenience. She wanted me small, tired, confused. But I wasn't confused. Not tonight." I rose from my chair and walked toward the hallway. The floorboards creaked beneath my steps, a sound I'd grown used to. Yet, tonight, it sounded different, like a drum roll. I opened the drawer of my old desk. The wooden handle squealed, resisting, as though the house itself hesitated to let me continue. Inside, under piles of unopened envelopes and neglected forms, was a leather-bound notebook I hadn't touched in years. It was worn, the edges soft from use, the pages filled with numbers, codes, notes written in the steady hand of a younger man, me, back when precision and vigilance weren't just habits, they were survival. I brushed the dust off the cover and flipped it open. The ink hadn't faded. My handwriting stared back at me like a reflection in a cracked mirror. Behind me, I heard Violet muttering in the kitchen, her voice low, rehearsing new lines of control for tomorrow. But I wasn't listening anymore. I placed the notebook on the table, spread out the first batch of envelopes, and began sorting them the way I once laid out evidence. Careful, methodical, relentless. Because this wasn't just about coffee, or a card, or a house. It was about the truth buried in paper. And I intended to dig until I found it. The cuckoo clock struck again, its hollow bird crying out into the room. And as I bent over the notebook, one thought consumed me. They have no idea what they've just started. I spread the envelopes across the table, like crime scene photos. Bills, insurance notices, letters I'd never opened because Violet insisted she'd take care of everything. The paper smelled of dust and neglect, but when I stacked them neatly, they became what they really were, evidence. The leather notebook sat in front of me, a relic from another life. Every page carried the discipline of a cop who never trusted memory alone. Names, dates, account numbers, passwords half-coded in ways only I could understand. My handwriting stared back at me, steady, decisive, untouched by the tremors of age. From the kitchen came the clatter of mugs. Violet made a performance out of banging ceramic, as if noise could erase the silence between us. Her voice followed, sing-song and poisonous. "Dad, remember, tomorrow, you either hand over the card or you move out. Tyler needs stability. He needs things. Things." Always things. New shoes, a gaming console, clothes with logos. I had seen plenty of men waste their lives chasing things. They never caught them. You know what he needs? I called back without raising my voice. He needs the truth. She laughed, brittle and sharp. What he needs is a future, and you're standing in the way. Her husband's chuckle drifted in from the living room again. I didn't respond. My job wasn't to win arguments anymore. My job was to prepare. When night came, the house settled into uneasy quiet. The cat's tail tapped against the floor like a metronome. I waited until the clock struck midnight, then opened my laptop. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the adrenaline that comes when you're about to cross a line you can't uncross. I typed the old username, checked the notebook for the password hint, and let muscle memory do the rest. Numbers and letters clicked into place, neat and precise, like soldiers lining up on parade. The cursor blinked at me, a silent dare. I hit enter. The screen changed. Account balances, transaction history, months of activity that I'd never authorized. Money dripping out of my savings like a slow leak. Entries labeled furniture delivery when no furniture had arrived. Medical expenses, though my bills had already been paid. Thousands gone, siphoned away under camouflage of daily life. The deeper I scrolled, the tighter my chest felt, not from the scar of my stroke, but from the betrayal. And then, near the bottom, the boldest theft of all, a loan application in my name against this house. Filed just days ago. My breath steadied. My pulse slowed. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. This was a crime. The floorboard behind me creaked. I snapped the laptop halfway shut, instinct still sharp after all these years. In the doorway stood Tyler, barefoot, holding something small. He stepped closer, and in his hand I saw it. My old police badge, still tucked inside its plastic case. He must have found it in one of the boxes upstairs. "This yours, Grandpa?" His voice was barely a whisper. I nodded. "It is, and so is everything you see on this screen." He glanced at the laptop. His eyes narrowed, reading faster than I expected. The kid wasn't stupid. He saw the numbers, the names, the transfers. His lips parted, but no sound came. "Your mom says you're the reason we're broke," he said finally. I leaned toward him. "Your mom says a lot of things." "Look close, Tyler. Do those look like my mistakes or someone else's?" He didn't answer, but he didn't look away either. I opened the laptop fully and clicked into the email account. Folders, filters, layers of deception I hadn't noticed before. A set of rules rerouting every important message straight into Violet's inbox. Another that deleted bank alerts before I could see them. One folder, chilling in its bluntness, labeled simply, Dad. I felt the boy shift beside me, saw his shoulders stiffen as he understood. And then, click, a light switched on in the hallway. Violet's shadow stretched toward us. Her voice came before her footsteps. Low, tired, but edged like glass. "What are you doing?" I turned the screen, just enough, so she could see the glow without making out the details. Tyler stiffened at my side, clutching my badge as though it might shield him. "Looking at the truth," I said. She stepped closer, her robe dragging on the floor. Even in the dim light, I could see the twitch at the corner of her mouth. The kind of twitch that comes when someone realizes their curtain has been yanked open. "You've been snooping," she hissed. "In my house." I closed the laptop halfway, deliberately slow. "This is my house, Violet, and those are my accounts." Her eyes darted to Tyler, then back to me. For a moment, I thought she might slap the computer shut. But the boy didn't move, standing there like a witness sworn under oath. That hesitation cost her. "Grandpa, show her," he said quietly. I opened the laptop again. The folders glowed on the screen. "Dad, delete forever. Rules rerouting every bank notice into her inbox." She blanched, then covered it with a laugh too brittle to sound human. "This is crazy. Technical glitches. He's old, Ty. He doesn't understand how these things work." I pulled a small recorder from my pocket. Old habits die hard. I clicked it on. A red dot blinked. Date, time, participants. I said into mic, my voice steady. evidence of financial manipulation and tampering with mail. Her eyes widened. You're recording me? You recorded me every time you signed my name. I replied. For a moment, silence. The fridge hummed. The clock clicked toward the next hour. Tyler looked from her to me, the cracks of truth widening in his young face. Then her tone changed, syrupy, desperate. Dad, we're helping you. You get confused. You forget. You can't handle these things anymore. If I were confused, I said, these signatures would match mine. I slid an envelope toward her, the fake scrawl bold against the paper. But they don't. Her mask slipped, just for a breath. I saw the panic underneath. Then she straightened, turned sharp again. Stop pretending you're in control. Either give us the card or you'll regret it. The threat hung in the room like smoke. I leaned back, folded my arms. The only one who'll regret something here is you, once a judge hears this. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway broke the standoff. Headlights swept across the curtains. Her husband. She glanced at the door, then back at me. Close it. Now. Instead, I hit save on the recorder and slid it into my pocket. My hand brushed against the badge Tyler still held, his fingers trembling. The front door opened. Heavy boots on the floorboards. A man's laugh. He stepped into the hallway, saw us frozen in the glow of the laptop. What's going on here? He asked, too casual, too practiced. I closed the computer with a snap. Why don't you tell me? I said. The red light of the recorder still blinked in my pocket, and for the first time, I saw him notice. He leaned on the doorframe like he owned the place. That smug grin had always been his armor, a way to make every room feel like his. But tonight, the red light in my pocket pulled it apart. His eyes caught it, narrowed. What's that? He asked, jerking his chin toward me. A witness, I said. Tyler didn't move. He still held my badge tight in his hand, the metal glinting in the low light. The boy's silence weighed heavier than my words. Violet stepped between us. Too quickly. He's confused. He thinks we've been stealing. Her husband laughed, shaking his head. Stealing? From you? Come on, old man. You wouldn't even know where to start looking. He was wrong. I did know. I had already started. I opened the laptop again and angled the screen toward them. Funny you say that. I told him, because I've seen the start, the middle, and the end. Furniture deliveries that never came. Medical charges that don't belong to me. Thousands gone. His smirk faltered for just a second, but he recovered. Clerical errors. Happens all the time. I scrolled down. Every line another nail in their coffin. And this? I pointed at the bottom entry. An application for a loan. My house as collateral, filed last week. Was this another clerical error too? The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the old clock announcing the hour with its hollow cuckoo. The sound echoed through the kitchen like a gavel. Violet's voice cracked. Dad, you don't understand how complicated these things are. I spent 30 years untangling complicated things. I cut her off, and I know a forgery when I see one. Her husband's bravado flickered again. He shifted his weight, looked at her, then back at me. Even if you take this to someone, who's going to believe you? An old man who already had a stroke. I leaned forward, my voice low, steady. They'll believe the numbers. They'll believe the bank records. They'll believe the signatures that don't match mine. And if they don't, I tapped my pocket, the recorder humming silently. They'll believe your own words. Violet glanced at Tyler. He was staring at her now. Not at me, not at the screen, but at her, the way a son stares when the truth cracks open. Mom, he whispered, why would you? Enough, she snapped, too sharp, too fast. The slip of control was worse than any confession. I closed the laptop and stacked the envelopes again. My hand rested on the old notebook, the one that held more than just numbers. It held discipline, memory, proof. This ends tomorrow, I said. Her husband laughed again, but there was no weight behind it. And who's going to help you? You? Him. He jerked his head at Tyler. I stood, straightened my back until the pain in my chest eased. I don't need to fight alone. And just then, headlights swept across the window again, different this time. A slower approach, tires crunching on gravel. The doorbell rang. Violet flinched. Her husband muttered a curse. I walked to the door, every step echoing like a drumbeat. When I opened it, the porch light fell across a familiar face. Older now, lined by years, but still sharp, still watchful. Evening, Nick, he said. Kevin, my old partner. He held a briefcase in one hand, determination in the other, and in that moment, I knew the fight had just changed sides. Kevin stepped inside like he'd never left the force. He still carried that quiet authority, the kind that made liars sit straighter, without realizing why. His briefcase clicked against the floor as he set it down, and he gave me a look that needed no words. Show me everything. I spread the envelopes and the notebook across the table. The laptop glowed between us, a silent witness. Violet lingered in the corner, arms crossed tight, her husband pacing behind her like a caged animal. Tyler stayed rooted near me, clutching my badge as if it were an anchor. Kevin flipped through the papers, whistling low. Hell, Nick, you weren't exaggerating. These aren't mistakes. This is a system. Same times of night, same device, same routing numbers. He tapped the loan application with 2 fingers. And that's the nail. Violet's voice cracked. You can't just come in here and... He looked up at her with the same steady eyes that once made suspects crumble in interrogation rooms. Ma'am, the only thing I'm doing is reading what's already here. Her husband scoffed. This is family business. You got no place in it. Kevin leaned back, folding his arms. Fraud isn't family business. It's criminal business. I almost smiled at the way the color drained from their faces. Nick, Kevin said, turning back to me. We need more than just this. Screenshots, logs, call records. If you've got phone statements, pull them, and we'll get a subpoena for the provider logs. I kept notes, I said, tapping the notebook. Every password, every call, every odd charge I couldn't explain at the time. That's good, he nodded. And I'll bring in a lawyer I trust. She doesn't rattle easy. Violet slammed her hand on the counter. You drag your own daughter into court? For what? Some clerical errors. For survival, I said, calm and cold. For the years I worked, so you'd never have to cheat me. For the truth you've been bearing under fake invoices and fake smiles. The silence after my words was broken only by the tick of the clock and the cat's tail thumping against the floor. Kevin pulled out his phone, dialed. Yeah, it's me. I need you tomorrow morning. Elder fraud, forged signatures, bank manipulations. Serious case. He paused, listening, then nodded. Good. He's got the evidence. We'll bring it to you. He hung up and closed the briefcase. Lawyer's name is Marcia. She'll take this apart piece by piece. Tyler finally spoke, his voice small but certain. Grandpa's not lying. I saw the filters. They were named after him. That hit Violet like a slap. She turned on him, eyes wide with betrayal. But the boy didn't flinch. He held up the badge instead, the silver catching the kitchen light. Don't, I said to her, my voice low. He's only telling the truth, and if you push him, he'll tell more. Kevin gathered the documents into neat stacks, his hands sure methodical. Tomorrow we make it official. No more whispers, no more secrets. We put it in ink. Violet's husband muttered, You'll regret this. Kevin snapped the briefcase shut with a metallic click. The only ones regretting something will be the ones who signed where they shouldn't have. The cuckoo clock cried out once more, its hollow bird announcing the hour. Midnight. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the notebook heavy, but righteous in my hands. And then my phone vibrated on the table. Unknown number. I answered, and a woman's voice, clipped and professional, came through. Mr. Nicholas? This is Adult Protective Services. We'll be at your residence tomorrow to evaluate a report of exploitation. Kevin's eyes met mine. Violet froze, and for the first time all night, her husband stopped smiling. The next morning the house was silent, but not calm. Silence like the pause before a verdict. Violet moved through the kitchen on autopilot, her mug clinking against the counter, her eyes avoiding mine. Her husband had already left, probably to prepare some new story. Tyler sat at the table, earbuds in but no music playing, pretending not to watch every move. At exactly 10, the doorbell rang. The sound cut through the air like a knife. I rose, smoothed my shirt, and opened the door. She was small, sharp-eyed, with a badge clipped to her jacket. "Mr. Nicholas?" "I'm Dana, Adult Protective Services. May I come in?" "Of course," I said. I stepped aside. Violet appeared instantly, smiling too wide. "Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad you could come. We've been helping my father with everything since his stroke. He gets confused sometimes, and—" Dana raised a hand. "I'll hear from him first." That smile froze on Violet's face. We sat at the table. I placed my leather notebook in front of me, opened to the page of passwords and notes. The laptop hummed to life. Tyler slipped out his earbuds, leaned forward. Dana's pen was ready before Violet even sat down. "Mr. Nicholas," she said, "tell me about your finances. Who manages them?" "I do," I answered. Or I did, until my daughter intercepted my mail and created filters in my email that deleted my bank notices. Violet laughed, brittle as glass. "That's not—" I slid the laptop forward. The screen displayed the folder named Dad, the filters rerouting every alert. Dana's brows lifted. Her pen scratched across the form. "And these transactions?" I asked, handing her printed statements. Charges for medical services I never received, furniture I never ordered, all routed to their account. Violet's voice sharpened. "You don't understand. He's confused. He doesn't—" "Does this look like confusion?" I interrupted, holding up the loan application with a forged signature. "Or does it look like exploitation?" Dana studied it quietly, then looked at Violet. "Why was his mail rerouted?" Must be a provider mistake," Violet muttered. "Providers don't create filters labeled delete forever," Dana replied flatly. She turned back to me. "Mr. Nicholas, do you wish to restrict your daughter's access to your accounts?" "I do," I said. My voice didn't shake. Dana wrote briskly. "Then we'll open a case. Effective immediately. She'll be removed from financial control. The evidence is strong enough to proceed." The words hit Violet harder than any blow. Her cheeks flushed red. Her smile cracked wide open. For the first time, she looked small, stripped of her script, standing in front of her own son. Tyler's eyes never left her. He wasn't confused anymore. He was recording every detail, engraving it into memory. Dana stood, gathering papers. "Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch." When the door closed behind her, the house was heavier than before. Violet's voice trembled. "You just destroyed your family." I met her eyes, steady cold. "No, I just saved it from you." And then, later that evening, when I opened the mailbox, I found a slip of paper waiting, a note about an appraisal scheduled for Thursday. They weren't finished. They wanted the house. And this time, they planned to do it quietly. Thursday came with a sky the color of steel. I dressed with care, pressed shirt, jacket, the same way I used it before court testimony. My hands moved steady, no tremor, no hesitation. At noon a silver sedan rolled into the driveway. Out stepped a tall man in a blazer, carrying a tablet and clipboard, the appraiser, and right behind him, Violet, striding across the yard like she was already the rightful owner. Neighbors had gathered in subtle ways. Mrs. Carter watering plants a little too long. The mailman pausing with his satchel. Even the couple across the street lingering by their car. An audience was forming, whether Violet wanted one or not. "Good afternoon," the appraiser said politely. "I'm here for the scheduled property evaluation." "Evaluation?" I asked. My voice carried across the yard. "Yes, sir," he said, holding up the tablet. "Order placed by a family representative." "That would be me," Violet cut in quickly. "I have power of attorney." I pulled a folded document from my jacket pocket and handed it to him. "Not anymore. Revoked as of yesterday. Signed and notarized." The man read it, eyes flicking from paper to tablet. He hesitated. The crowd at the fence leaned closer. Violet's voice rose, sharper, desperate. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's confused. He had a stroke. Confused? I said loudly, turning toward the neighbors. I opened my notebook, held it high. Does confusion look like 3 decades of records? Passwords, accounts, dates? Or does confusion look like forged signatures and rerouted mail? The appraiser shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, without a valid authorization, I can't proceed. Violet reached for his tablet. Too quick, too forceful. He jerked it back, his professional mask cracking just enough for everyone to see her desperation. The mailman spoke up from the curb. I can vouch. There were reroutes on his mail. I delivered the slips myself. The weight of silence crushed her. Every eye was on her now. Not me, not the appraiser. Her. Then the evaluation is canceled. The man said firmly, sliding his tablet back into its case. He nodded to me, respectful now. Sorry for the confusion, sir. I returned the nod. No confusion at all. The crowd began to disperse, murmuring, whispering, carrying the truth down the block like wildfire. Violet stood frozen, her hands shaking at her sides. I leaned close enough for only her to hear. That was your second act, and it wasn't in private. The cuckoo clock inside the house struck 12, its hollow cries spilling out the open window like judgment. And just as the sound faded, my phone buzzed. A message from Kevin. Court date confirmed. Tomorrow. That night the house felt different. Not like home, but like a staging ground. The kitchen table was no longer a place for meals. It had become a war desk. Kevin arrived just after dark, carrying his briefcase. With him came Marcia, the lawyer. She was tall, sharp-eyed, with a voice like steel wrapped in velvet. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. Show me what you've got, she said. I laid everything out, statements, letters, the loan application, screenshots of the email filters. My notebook sat in the center, its pages filled with years of discipline. She flipped through each page quickly but thoroughly, nodding at certain entries, underlining others with her pen. This is strong, she said finally. Very strong. But tomorrow, they'll try to make it about you, your health, your memory, your credibility. They'll try to paint you as unreliable. I've been called worse, I answered. Kevin chuckled softly. Marcia didn't. She leaned closer. Stay calm. Don't take the bait. Facts are our weapon. You just tell the truth. Let me do the cutting. Across the room, Tyler sat on the couch, silent, holding the badge in his hand like a talisman. Every so often his eyes flicked to me, then to his mother's closed bedroom door upstairs. He was choosing sides, and it wasn't hers. We worked for hours. Kevin compiled logs. Marcia rehearsed questions. I filled in every detail I could remember. Midnight came, then 1, then 2. The cuckoo clock chirped each hour, its hollow song like a countdown. At one point I caught my reflection in the darkened window. The man staring back wasn't the broken figure Violet wanted to present. He looked older, yes, but steady, ready. A man who had survived worse than betrayal. Finally, Marcia closed the folder. We're ready. Tomorrow, we put it all in front of the judge. No more secrets. Kevin checked his watch. Get some rest, Nick. Big day ahead. But rest wouldn't come easy. I walked Tyler to his room, pulled the blanket over his shoulders. He looked up at me. Grandpa, if Mom lies tomorrow, what happens? I sat on the edge of his bed. The truth has longer legs. Lies stumble sooner or later. He nodded, clutching the badge. Then I'll tell what I saw. For the first time, I felt real hope, not for me, but for him. I closed his door softly, returned to the kitchen. The papers were stacked, the recorder charged, the notebook ready. And just as I reached to turn off the light, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered. A familiar voice, cold and amused, slid into my ear. You think tomorrow will save you, old man? Tomorrow is where we bury you. The line went dead. The courthouse smelled of varnish and old paper, the kind of smell that carries memories of justice won and lost. My shoes echoed down the hallway as Kevin walked beside me. Marcia just ahead, her file tucked under her arm like a blade she knew how to use. Inside the courtroom, the air was thick with whispers. Violet and her husband sat at the opposite table. She wore a dark dress, hair perfectly arranged, the picture of a devoted daughter. He leaned back in his chair, smirking as though this was already decided. The judge entered, and the room rose. His gavel struck wood, and silence fell like a curtain. Marcia wasted no time. She laid out the bank statements, the forged signatures, the email filters. Her voice was steady, precise, every word cutting away at the facade across the room. The projector displayed the evidence one by one, and I could see the jurors shift, their eyes narrowing at the patterns of theft. Then came Violet's turn. Her lawyer rose, a smooth-talking man with a polished smile. "Your Honor, my client has acted only in the best interest of her father. He is recovering from a stroke. His memory is unreliable." She took steps to protect him from himself. "Protect me." That word landed like a stone. The judge turned to me. "Mr. Nicholas, do you understand these documents?" I rose, steady as I could, and held up the application with the forged signature. "Your Honor, I spent 3 decades comparing handwriting, identifying fraud. This," I pointed to the scrawl, "uneven and sloppy, isn't mine. This is hers." I could feel Violet's eyes burning into me, but I didn't flinch. The lawyer tried again, waving toward me. "Confusion, Your Honor. His age, his condition." "Confusion doesn't create email filters labeled delete forever." Marcia cut in sharply. "Confusion doesn't reroute mail or sign loan applications at 2 in the morning. That's intent." The judge leaned back, his gaze heavy. "Do you have witnesses?" Marcia nodded. "Yes, the postal worker who handled the reroutes, the social worker who documented financial exploitation, and—" She paused just enough to let the silence build. "His grandson, who saw the filters with his own eyes." Tyler shifted in his seat, nervous but firm. He looked at his mother, then at me. His voice was quiet but clear. "He's telling the truth." The words hit the room like a hammer. Violet's composure cracked. Her lawyer whispered furiously, but she stared straight ahead, jaw tight, hands trembling in her lap. The judge studied her for a long moment, then turned back to me. "Mr. Nicholas, you brought serious allegations. Tomorrow, I'll hear closing arguments and render a decision. For now, this court is adjourned." The gavel struck again. The sound echoed through my chest. But as the room emptied, Violet leaned close as she passed me, her voice a whisper only I could hear. "This isn't over, Dad. You've started something you can't control." I didn't answer. I just tightened my grip on the notebook in my hand, because the next strike wouldn't be hers. It would be mine. The second day in court felt heavier, as if the walls themselves knew judgment was near. I sat straighter than I had in years, my notebook on the table in front of me, Tyler just behind me. Kevin's hand rested on my shoulder for a brief moment before he took his seat. The judge entered, robe swaying, gavel in hand. The murmurs died. Marcia rose first. Her voice carried not anger but clarity, the kind that leaves no room for denial. "Your Honor, the evidence is not scattered. It is systematic. We have forged signatures, fraudulent transactions, rerouted mail, email filters deliberately named to erase truth. We have witnesses who confirm a pattern of exploitation. This isn't confusion. It's calculated theft." She placed my old badge on the table in front of her. This man served his city for decades, protecting citizens from exactly this kind of fraud. Today, he deserves that same protection. Then Violet's lawyer stood. He gestured toward her like she was porcelain. "She is a daughter, a mother." She acted out of concern, not greed. Yes, mistakes were made, but only in the name of care. This court must weigh compassion against technicalities. Compassion. The word hung sour in the air. The judge looked directly at Violet. "Do you deny signing these documents?" Her hands gripped the table. The silence stretched too long. Finally, she spoke, voice brittle. I signed them, but it was for him. He wouldn't have understood." The room shifted. Even her own lawyer closed his eyes for a second, as if bracing for impact. The judge leaned forward, voice hard as stone. "What you call protection, the law calls fraud. You exploited your father, diverted his assets, attempted to mortgage his home without his consent. That is not compassion. That is a crime. His gavel struck. The sound thundered. This court finds Violet and her husband guilty of financial exploitation and fraud. Effective immediately. They are barred from accessing his accounts, responsible for repayment of stolen funds, and subject to community restitution. I exhaled slowly, the weight of years lifting, replaced by something steadier, justice. But the judge wasn't finished. He turned toward Tyler. You are 16. The choice of where to reside until majority is yours. Tyler stood, his voice quiet but firm. With my grandpa. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Violet's head dropped, her shoulders shaking. Her husband cursed under his breath, the sound carrying across the silent benches. The gavel struck once more. So ordered. It was done. As we filed out, the sunlight through the courthouse windows felt different, brighter, sharper. But at the bottom of the steps, Violet caught my arm. Her eyes were wet, her voice a whisper I'd heard once before at her wedding, when she promised me she'd make me proud. You've destroyed us, she said. I looked at her, steady. No, Violet, you destroyed yourself. All I did was shine a light. Her husband pulled her away, but I knew then this wasn't just about winning. It was about showing her that love and trust are not currencies to be stolen. And as Tyler slipped his hand into mine, I felt the last line of defense fall away. The war wasn't over, but the battlefield had changed. The days after the ruling felt like walking through the wreckage after a storm. The house was quieter, but not in peace. Quieter like an abandoned battlefield. Violet and her husband avoided me, retreating into whispered arguments behind closed doors. The air carried their bitterness like smoke that clung to every wall. Tyler stayed close. He followed me into the garage, the garden, even the attic, as if afraid I'd disappear if he looked away. I didn't mind. A boy needs to know where safety lives. One evening, as the sun dropped behind the trees, I found him packing a duffel bag. He zipped it halfway, paused, then looked at me. Grandpa, the judge said I could choose. I've already chosen. I studied his face, the same sharp jawline his mother once had at his age, but with eyes that hadn't yet hardened. You sure about this? He nodded. I don't want to live in lies anymore. His voice trembled, but his grip on the bag didn't. Downstairs, the fight broke open. Violet's voice, raw and jagged, clashed with her husband's low growl. Words like ruin and shame bounced off the walls. Tyler froze, listening. His face hardened in a way that no boy should. I laid a hand on his shoulder. Let's go. We walked down the stairs together. Violet stood at the bottom, eyes red, mascara streaked. She looked at Tyler. Not me? You're really leaving me? For him. The boy didn't answer right away. He stepped closer, his voice quiet but certain. I'm not leaving you, Mom. I'm leaving the lies. If you want me back, you'll have to tell the truth. Her husband barked a laugh, bitter and cruel. He's a kid. He doesn't know what he's saying. But Violet's face told a different story. She knew. The weight of his words landed harder than any gavel. I picked up the duffel, nodded once to her. He'll be safe with me. For a moment, I saw something flicker at her eyes. Not anger, not even hatred, but loss. Like watching a bridge burn that she'd never thought could fall. We walked out into the night air. It smelled cleaner, lighter. Tyler slipped his hand into mine, his grip strong. At home, he unpacked slowly, placing the badge on the nightstand beside his bed. This is where it belongs now, he said. The cuckoo clock marked the hour, its wooden bird echoing through the quiet house. This time, it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a beginning. But I knew better than to trust silence. Because late that night, just as I was about to sleep, I heard footsteps outside the window. Slow, deliberate. And then a knock at the door. The knock was hesitant, almost fragile. Not the hard raps of authority or the angry pounding of demand. Just 3 soft taps, like someone asking permission to exist. I opened the door. Violet stood there without makeup, her eyes swollen from nights without sleep. No jewelry, no blazer, no armor. Just my daughter, stripped of all the things she thought made her strong. Dad, she whispered, her voice fraying at the edges. Can I come in? For a long moment, I said nothing. Tyler hovered behind me, barefoot, clutching the edge of his blanket. He looked at her the way a boy looks at a ghost, half hope, half fear. Finally, I stepped aside. She crossed the threshold like she was walking into a memory she wasn't sure she deserved. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where the war had started. I poured her coffee in the mug I'd scrubbed clean months ago, the one she'd once used as a weapon against me. Steam rose between us, soft, curling, innocent this time. I ruined everything, she said, staring at the mug but not touching it. I thought if I controlled the money, the house, I thought I was keeping us safe. But I was keeping myself safe. From fear. From being nobody. Her voice cracked. And in the process, I became nobody. I let the silence stretch. Words don't heal as fast as truth. Finally, I said, love isn't control, Violet. It isn't money or signatures. It's respect. It's trust. You lost those. Tears fell, splashing into her coffee. She didn't wipe them away. What do I do now? I glanced at Tyler. He hadn't sat down. He lingered at the doorway, watching, waiting. You tell him, I said. Not me, him. She turned, meeting her son's eyes. For the first time in months, maybe years, she didn't talk down to him. She looked up at him, as if he were the only one keeping her from drowning. Tyler, she whispered, I lied to you. I told you he was the reason we struggled. But it was me. I forged, I stole, I hid. Not him. Me. The boy's lip trembled, but he didn't turn away. He walked slowly to the table, set the badge down in front of her. If you want me to believe you again, you have to earn it back. Her shoulders shook as she nodded. I will. I'll sign whatever papers. I'll pay back whatever I can. Just don't shut the door on me forever. I slid a sheet of paper across the table. The first draft of a repayment schedule, drafted by Marcia. Next to it, I placed a key, not to the house, but to the shed out back. This isn't control, I said. It's an invitation. To show up, to work, to rebuild. Not with tricks. With truth. Violet looked at the key, then at me. Her face broke completely, tears spilling freely. She reached for the coffee, wrapped both hands around it like it was the only warmth she had left. The cuckoo clock struck 9. Its hollow call filled the room, softer this time, almost gentle. But before the sound faded, my phone buzzed again on the table. Kevin's message lit the screen. Final hearing scheduled. Compensation terms. Mandatory admission of guilt. I looked up at Violet. She had seen the screen, too. Her eyes widened. In public, she whispered. The day of the hearing dawned gray, a sky heavy with unfinished business. But it wasn't the courthouse that mattered now. The papers had been signed, the ruling delivered. What remained was something harder. Truth spoken not to a judge, but to the people who had watched the lies grow. It began on my front lawn. Neighbors gathered quietly, some out of curiosity, some out of loyalty, all with the weight of gossip already forming. The mailman leaned on his satchel. Mrs. Carter folded her arms. The appraiser stood off to the side with stiff nod. Even the social worker returned, her clipboard at the ready. Violet stood beside me, trembling. Her face was pale, her hands clenched. She looked at Tyler, then at me. Do I have to? Yes, I said, because the truth isn't real until it's spoken out loud. She turned toward the small crowd. At first no words came. Her lips parted, closed, open again. Then, slowly, she began. I lied, she said, her voice carrying across the lawn. I lied to my father. I lied to my son. I took his money. I signed his name. I rerouted his mail. I tried to take his house. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers followed, sharp and cutting. She pressed on, voice breaking. I told myself it was for us, but it was for me. I was afraid of losing control, and I lost everything anyway. The mailman lowered his head. Mrs. Carter shook hers. The appraiser crossed his arms, satisfied that the truth had finally clawed its way into daylight. Tyler stepped forward, the badge in his hand. He didn't smile, But he didn't look away either. You told me Grandpa was the reason we were broke. That was a lie, too. Yes, Violet whispered. Yes, it was. Her knees nearly buckled, but she caught herself. Tears streaked her cheeks as she looked back at me. Is that enough? I shook my head. It's a start. The rest will come with time, with repayment, with honesty. The social worker closed her clipboard with a sharp snap. Admission recorded. She said, Case file updated. This will follow you formally. Violet nodded weakly, shoulders sagging under the weight of her own words. For the first time, I saw no defiance in her. Just a woman finally stripped of every mask. The crowd dispersed slowly, their whispers trailing into the afternoon air. Truth, once released, travels faster than lies. I guided Tyler back inside. He carried a badge now not as a shield, but as a reminder. Violet trailed behind us, smaller than I had ever seen her. Inside, the cuckoo clock struck noon, its hollow bird calling across the kitchen. It sounded less like judgment this time, more like closure. But even as the sound faded, Kevin's voice crackled through my phone. Nick, it's set. Final compensation hearing. Tomorrow we finish this. And for the first time, I felt the end drawing close. An end not just of war, but of silence. The courthouse felt colder this time, though the sun outside was bright. Maybe it was because this wasn't about guilt anymore. That part was settled. Today was about consequences. Numbers. Repayment. The weight of dollars attached to broken trust. Kevin sat beside me, his arms folded, calm as ever. Marcia arranged her folders with surgical precision. Across the aisle, Violet and her husband looked smaller than before, their clothes too formal for bodies that sagged under shame. Tyler sat behind me, silent, steady. The judge entered, gavel striking once. We are here to finalize restitution and compensation for Mr. Nicholas. Marcia rose. Your Honor, the damages are clear. Funds withdrawn, loans attempted, assets diverted. We ask full restitution, schedule repayment, and community service as recognition of the harm caused. The opposing lawyer barely stood. His arguments were thin, already deflated. Your Honor, my clients acknowledge the court's ruling. We only ask for leniency in the repayment schedule. The judge glanced at me. Mr. Nicholas, do you wish to speak? I stood. My knees reminded me of age, but my voice carried strength. I don't want revenge. I want accountability. Money can be repaid. Trust will take longer. But without consequences, there's no lesson. And without a lesson, there's no future. The judge nodded. His pen scratched against paper. Restitution in full. Payment schedule established. Both defendants are barred from accessing Mr. Nicholas's accounts permanently. Additionally, 200 hours of community service, focusing on elder support programs. The words landed like stones dropped into water, rippling outward, impossible to ignore. Then came the final cut. Mrs. Violet, you will read a formal statement of guilt and apology. It will be entered into the public record. The courtroom shifted. Whispers rose, died quickly. Violet's face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Her husband stared at the floor, unwilling to lift his eyes. Marcia handed her the paper. Now. Her hands shook as she read. I exploited my father financially. I falsified documents, redirected his mail, and attempted to claim his property. I acknowledged my actions were criminal. I asked forgiveness from the court, my father, and my son. Each word cut her smaller. Each word carved away the illusion she had built for years. By the time she finished, her voice was nearly gone, a whisper drowned by the silence in the room. The judge stamped the file, entered into record. His gavel fell one last time. It was over. Outside on the courthouse steps, reporters gathered, microphones raised. One shouted, Mr. Nicholas, do you feel vindicated? I looked at the sun breaking through the clouds, felt Tyler's hand slip into mine. I feel free, I said. That's enough. But as Violet descended the steps behind me, her eyes met mine, not defiant, not angry, just hollow. And in that hollow space, I knew she wasn't finished breaking. And neither was I. The courthouse steps emptied slowly, like water draining from a cracked basin. Reporters drifted away, neighbors scattered, and soon only the echo of traffic remained. Tyler walked ahead, clutching his backpack, while Kevin lingered by the car, giving me space. Violet stayed behind. She didn't storm, didn't posture. She just stood there, hands clasped in front of her, as if waiting for a sentence the judge hadn't given. Finally, she took a step toward me. "Dad," she said softly, "can we talk?" "Just us." I nodded, and we walked down the block, away from the courthouse. The air smelled of exhaust and rain on hot pavement. For the first time in months, her voice held no steel, only cracks. "I thought today would kill me," she whispered. Saying those words out loud, seeing Tyler look at me like that, it felt like losing everything. "You lost everything the moment you traded truth for control," I said. She swallowed hard. "I know, and I don't expect forgiveness. I don't want to disappear from his life. Or yours." We stopped near a bench. I sat, slow but steady. She stayed standing, too restless to settle. "Forgiveness," I said, "isn't a gift I hand out like a spare key. It's earned piece by piece. You signed papers. You read your guilt into the record. That's a start. But it doesn't erase what you did." Her shoulders trembled. "So what do I do now?" I looked her in the eye. "You show up, not with excuses, with work, with honesty. Tyler doesn't need perfection. He needs truth. And truth doesn't cost money. It costs pride." She nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. "I'll try, even if it takes years." "You'll have them," I said, "but you won't have control. Not anymore." For a long moment we were silent, the noise of the city filling the space between us. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out the house key she still carried. She placed it in my hand. "This doesn't belong to me anymore," she said. I closed my fingers around it. The metal was warm from her skin, but it felt like ice in my palm. I pocketed it without a word. When we returned to the car, Tyler was waiting. He looked at his mother, then at me. "Are we going home?" "Yes," I said. "We're going home." Violet hesitated, standing apart from us, her eyes fixed on the ground. "Can I come by?" "Not to stay, just to try again." I studied her for a long moment. The cuckoo clock at home ticked in my mind, marking the rhythm of truth. "You can come," I said finally, "but you come as a guest, not an owner, not a master." Her lips trembled as she nodded. We drove off. The courthouse shrank in the rearview mirror, but the weight of it stayed with us. Justice had been delivered, but redemption, that was still unwritten. And I knew the final page was waiting at home. Night settled heavy over the house, but inside it was brighter than I remembered in months. Tyler was upstairs, the sound of his laughter with the cat echoing faintly through the floorboards. For the first time, the house didn't feel like a prison. It felt alive again. I sat at the kitchen table, the old leather notebook in front of me, the badge beside it. The same table where Violet once scalded me with coffee, trying to break me. Now the mug stood in the center again, steam curling gently upward, not as a weapon, as a reminder. The door creaked open. Violet stepped inside, shoulders slumped, eyes red but dry. She looked at the table, at the mug, at me. "Dad, I signed the final repayment papers today. It's over." "No," I said, my voice steady. "It ends tonight." She frowned. "What do you mean?" I slid the notebook toward her. Every page filled with evidence, every mark of her betrayal. "This is the record of what you did. It will stay here, in this house, long after money is repaid. You wanted control. You wanted power. Instead, you've given me something better. The truth written in ink. And truth doesn't fade." Her lips trembled. "Why keep it? Why not burn it and forget?" "Because forgetting is mercy you haven't earned," I said. "My revenge isn't to see you punished. The courts already did that. My revenge is to make sure every time you step into this house, you see the notebook, the mug, the clock, the badge, and you remember you lost everything by trying to take everything." The cuckoo clock struck. The wooden bird emerged, its hollow cry echoing through the silence. Once that sound mocked me. Tonight it sealed her shame. Violet dropped her gaze. And Tyler, she whispered. He's with me now, I said, not because I took him, but because you drove him away. He chose truth. That choice is his. And you'll have to earn your way back into his life, one honest step at a time. If you can't, then you'll watch him walk forward without you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She covered her face, but there was no hiding anymore. I stood, placed the spare shed key on the table in front of her. You wanted a house. Here's all you get. A key to the shed. That's your inheritance until you prove you can be trusted. Her shoulders shook, her sobs raw and unguarded. For the first time, I didn't feel pity or rage. I felt something stronger. Finality. I picked up the badge, held in my palm, and then set it gently back into its case. My years of chasing criminals were over. But tonight, I had caught the hardest one of all, my own blood. Love. I said quietly, is in control. It isn't money. It's respect. And until you understand that, you'll never have it. She clutched the shed key with trembling hands, as if it weighed more than gold. I walked past her, turned off the kitchen light, and let the house fall into silence. The cuckoo clock ticked steady. Tyler's laughter floated down the stairs, light and unbroken. And for the first time in years, I smiled, because my revenge was complete. Not in violence, not in cruelty, but in boundaries set so firmly that they would echo through her life longer than any sentence. The coffee mug sat in the dark, steam fading. No longer a scar, now a symbol. And with that, the story was finished. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.